Hello and welcome back to the Father and Son Pastime podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin.
That's my dad. We
Right.
are finishing up. We're down to our final four teams in our all-time fantasy team, dream teams of the MLB franchises. Today's feature is the Detroit Tigers. We're very excited to talk about this team that has been in Detroit for almost 120 years.
Yes. I mean, they went through peaks and valleys. They're one of the founding folks of Major League Baseball back in the day when Detroit was just a thriving town. They were very good in the 60s and then came back. They've had peaks and valleys, but I mean, if you really look at the team, especially from the mid 60s on, they had a core of great players and always seemed to be the Tigers Cardinals in the postseason for a long time.
Obviously, this list will be completely dominated by Hall of Famers, both current Hall of Famers as well as a few future Hall of Famers, and even one player that's still on our team, at least from my list. But I guess that's the only spoiler I'll give right now. If you're new to the Father and Son Pastime podcast, welcome. But we have a few rules in creating this dream team. Obviously, it's going to be very easy for Detroit, but you have to have at least 3 years of service time, so that's not going to be that hard, generating 120 years of history here. And you also have to be specific to that position, or at least known for playing that position. You can't just put Miguel Cabrera at second base because you think he's better than Whitaker, for example.
Plus, he has no range.
Exactly, but you just can't plug and chug. It has to make sense for that player in that position. But yeah, Dad, would you like to kick us off with catcher, and then we'll go from there?
Be my pleasure. I had Bill Freehan, so he was the rock of the '60s Tigers. I think he was there for more than 10 years. And again, captain of squad. And again, that's when they were very good in the playoffs and in the World Series. So Bill Freehan is my choice. There's others, but Bill Freehan, I think, had the most leadership ability and longevity.
Bill's a great choice, as is Lance Parrish. And then my choice, I think if you add in my choice plus Lance and your choice, you're going to have probably the most Gold Glove winning catchers on a team. You can check us at home, but I think the Detroit Tigers at the catching position have won more Gold Gloves than any other team.
Yeah.
Fun little fact, I know the Gold Glove hasn't always been a thing, but for the most part, I really think they've dominated that award category. I'm choosing the most prolific defensive catcher ever, Ivan Rodriguez Pudge. He was only there for 4 years. Out of those 3 years, he obviously had 3 Gold Gloves. We'll talk about Texas soon as well, and he'll obviously be the captain behind the plate there too. But I really just thought that he came to Detroit a little, later in his career, but still was able to get 3 Gold Gloves. Great offensively, great defensively. I'll talk about captaining and being a leader. Ivan Rodriguez is certainly a leader.
So he's going to be on 2 of your teams.
Yeah. There's a little hint there too. We haven't done the Texas Rangers yet,
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. I didn't know that he had more Gold Gloves than Bench.
I didn't either,
Yeah.
only because I think he played more years than Bench.
Mm.
And I think when he was in the American League, there wasn't a great deal of competition. But Johnny, I think, got to about his mid-30s or so. And then all of a sudden he started, playing a little first base and all that stuff. But I think Ivan played more years than Johnny.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So I've started off with a Hall of Famer. I don't know if Bill is in the Tigers Hall of Fame. If not, he should be.
He is.
Cool.
He is.
Very nice.
Yeah. I mean, he was a rock. And he didn't have a whole lot of days off. So he was the guy. And he was a true leader of the Tigers. Tough guy, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
60s.
You got him.
So,
I got a lot of 60s players on my squad. Because I lived in Michigan during the 60s. And
that only took a minute and a half to bring up.
And on the black and white TV from Channel 4 in Detroit was the Tigers.
Yes.
But they were very good in those days.
And if we obviously interviewed or talked to anyone in their 70s or 80s, they would probably come up with a different list than what we're having. That's what the fun about doing these little all-time dream teams are, is your perspective really influences your decision. Moving on to first base, I have another Hall of Famer. You can put him really at first base or left field. I'm going first base, but Hank Greenberg.
Interesting.
Yes.
I have him in left field.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
He's got to be on your list, because
Yeah.
if you don't have a Hall of
Yeah.
Famer on your list, I would like to know why.
Yeah.
But
That's a really good choice. I thought he had more time in the outfield than first base, but again, a lot of players that did that, switched to first base and all that. I have a person from the 60s that, again, it was a great, called Norm Cash, wore number 25. And again, he was the prolific pull hitter. Always had like 20, 25 home runs, which was a lot in those days. And then also, he was part of the championship teams, and he really was a great player. But as the list goes on, I thought Norm's, he just, has a special memory for me during the 60s.
What's so great about a lot of these teams is the Yankees, the Reds, the Tigers, for example. You can easily have a 25-man roster of Hall of Famers, All Star people. And Norm Cash is one of those people. So either he's your starter or he's obviously your first baseman off the bench. Now Miguel Cabrera could obviously go here, or he could go in that third base slot.
Yeah.
We'll see in a little bit if either of us chose Miguel Cabrera. Moving on to second, Dad. Who do you have?
Sweetness. Sweet Lou Whitaker. Dick McAuliffe was another great second
Yes.
baseman, but Lou was, he played there, I think, his entire career, if I'm not mistaken, and just was
Yes,
a
he did.
great, steady second baseman. And, him and his, little double play mate, Alan Trammell, were there, a very good defense up the middle. So Lou took my vote, and again, offensively, he was great, stole bases. So again, I just like the way Lou played baseball.
I'm assuming it's a dumb question to ask you if Trammell's your shortstop.
It is.
So yeah, I think having Whitaker and Trammell, they're almost like a package deal.
Correct.
Because they played so long together. I mean, I really can't think of a second baseman shortstop trio in my generation that had each other's backs like that. Maybe a young Cano and an aging Jeter kind of rings a little bit of a bell, but even then, these are, as a duo, better defensively than Cano and Jeter.
Or Young and Malter, another little shortstop second base.
Right. Yeah, Malter can really play anywhere. Second base, third base
yeah.
too.
But yeah, they were together forever, and I think they were as smooth as they could be.
Yeah. So they're my package deal at second and short as well. Third base. What's the controversial third base? What do we have?
I had George Kell.
Okay. So you went a little older on that one.
I did. I looked at a little statistics on George, and again, really a consistent hitter through his career, renowned, still in the top 10 of all-time Tigers. So again, when I went through, I know probably the direction you're going, but I like George.
Mm-hmm. I went with Miggy Cabrera,
yeah.
Mainly because I can't see the argument, or if again maybe because you're DH, but you can't leave a Triple Crown winner off of a Dream Team. If you do that once, it's like leaving maybe a Cy Young. Maybe you have multiple Cy Youngs to pick from, but if you leave off that Cy Young, you leave off a league MVP or a World Series MVP. It's a really hard argument to leave someone off rather than put someone on. So I got Miguel third.
Hall of Famer?
Yeah, absolutely. First ballot.
Okay.
First ballot.
All right. Yeah, and I did save
as a Tiger, by the way. I know he spent some years
I
in
did
Florida.
save for my DH because I want to get Norm in there. For selfish reasons, I want to get Norm in there.
Listen, it's totally fine. Left, Dad, I'm going to throw it back to someone you talked about in Cleveland. Do you remember your left field pick for the Cleveland Indians Dream Team?
Rocky Colavito.
That's who I chose for Detroit.
He was a great player.
Yeah, he was. I was very impressed by his numbers. Yeah. Bobby Higginson gets a notable mention. An honorable mention. I really liked Bobby Higginson in my generation. Your pick.
Hank Greenberg.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. Again, just
Norm Cash right at first. Shout out to Norm Cash, everybody.
Norm, if you're listening, make sure you
please, you're one of our 5 viewers.
Contact us, Norm, and say, hey, thank you for the memory. I appreciate it. I don't get a whole lot of votes anymore, but I had Hank in left field. Again, statistically, he was fantastic. And again, it shows the longevity of Detroit, and then the players they had early on went through a little swoon, came back. Mm-hmm. So they've gone peeps and valleys, but they've had great players.
Mm-hmm. For center field, I think it's an easy choice here. Ty Cobb.
Yes.
For every single reason you can imagine: hitting, fielding, speed, defense, etc. I don't normally obviously choose a lot of pre-integration players just because I really think obviously when baseball became fair, you got to see the best talent imaginable.
Yeah.
But again, you can't leave Ty Cobb off your list.
Yeah, and you hear so many stories about how mean he was and how he treated people very well, and his teammates didn't like him. But as far as a baseball player, he was the Pete Rose of his era.
Yeah, they didn't track for most of his career. They didn't track a lot of caught stealing. So I wonder. He's known for obviously all those good attempts, but I wonder how many times he actually got caught stealing too.
If not, he spiked them.
Yeah, probably. Slid and spikes up for
That's
sure.
That's right. You tag me out, I'm gonna hurt you.
Yes, I assume we'll let you talk about the right field choice. A man from Baltimore is my assumption. That's what you're picking.
Yeah, Kaline, and he passed away recently, unfortunately.
Yes.
I think someone wrote an article. There were 7 great baseball players have died in the last 60 days, and I think Kaline was the first.
Kaline was in April.
Yeah.
Of 2020.
Okay.
This is being filmed in October of 2020, whenever it debuts.
Yeah, someone wrote an article about what 2020 has meant to so many people, but for the world of baseball, it's lost a lot of great players, and it's ironic. It's all in this calendar year, but Al was again the star of the '60 of Tigers, and he was always in a top 10 for batting, home runs and everything else. He was the Reggie Jackson of his era as a right fielder that could do everything.
Hmm. Yeah, 10 Gold Gloves, 18 All Star games. I mean, truly prolific. I will. Once we get through all these dream teams, we'll talk about what one person represents the team.
Yeah,
I mean, I think if it's not him, he's got a lot of votes. I mean, he is Mr. Tiger after all.
he is.
So
He is. Southern High School in Baltimore, Maryland.
very nice.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we're from Maryland. You didn't get that part. So moving on to DH, I think there's two options. I've already used Miguel Cabrera in my field, so I'll use Cecil Fielder as my DH.
Very good. Very good. I had him on my list. Again, I gave it away with our friend.
Spoiler alert.
Yes. But I had Cecil as my second choice, but then two others that you may want to chime in on, Victor Martinez
Quite great.
and Willie Horton.
Victor Martinez, I don't have the number here, but I know in the past 20 years, he's one of the lowest, the hardest strikeouts you can get. Like, he has the lowest amount of strikeouts for an active hitter.
Yeah.
Check me on that. But when he was with Detroit, and then obviously that year or so, I think he was with Boston, just truly, he always put it in play. He hated getting walked, just like Poppy or other great DHs, Edgar Martinez, because his job was to hit. But V-Mart, yeah, 100%.
One of the great trades that Boston's ever made, by the way. They got him at mid-season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and JD Martinez should also be on this list, too.
Yeah.
As a outfielder or as a DH.
Yeah.
He's not going to take the place of really any of these outfielders, but maybe as a DH.
But I agree. When they had their 3, 4, 5 hitters during that era, I mean, they were very, very productive, and Boston stole them. I forgot what the trade was, but Boston, it helped their lineup considerably when they had Victor Martinez.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So finishing up on offense, we move to the pitching part of Detroit. We pick a starter, a reliever, a closer, and for the fun of it, we also end up talking about our manager that we want to manage this 120-year-old franchise one time, if that makes any sense, as well as our favorite logo. Hint, Detroit's got a lot of logos, but we'll get to that. Dad, who's your starter? There's Hall of Fame options on here, possible future Hall of Fame options. What are you choosing?
I was very, very perplexed with this one. I'm going with Justin Verlander. Only because I saw him warm up at Camden Yards.
Yeah, it's impressive. Hal Newhouser, obviously, I think is the second choice here.
And then two other pitchers from the '60s, I'll throw in just for talk about, because they battled Bob Gibson, which I'm a huge fan.
They didn't fight him though, did they?
No, both are out of shape. But Denny McLain, who won 31 games one year,
that's nice.
And Mickey Lolich.
Okay.
And Mickey was a left-handed starter that was kind of like a comparable Whitey Ford back in the day. But when McLain and Lolich were 1-2, Detroit did very well each and every season. But I think Denny McLain is the last 31-game winner in the majors for as long as I can remember. And, unfortunately, he flamed out. But those two were in there. But consistently, Verlander, he's got my respect.
I chose Justin as well. You have a Cy Young, you have an MVP, both for this team, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have a great rotation. So this would be, again, just those four players. I mean, you can add a fifth. Again, there's a lot of options there. But yeah, they have a true dominance on the mound. I went with someone newer, and clearly you did as well. For setup and closer, who are you thinking?
Willie Hernandez.
Must be on there for sure.
He's the setup.
Setup, okay.
And my closer goes back to the '60s, Hank Aguirre.
Okay, 60s, of course.
Was the closer. Yeah. He was the closer back then, and he was getting 25, going plus saves before saves were a big thing. So Hank Aguirre, if you really look at his statistics, consistently was the star out of the bullpen. So I'm happy with those choices.
I have Todd Jones as my closer. He's the all-time franchise leader in saves, so pretty easy choice sometimes when you have that. Again, I'm not saying this man was dominant. I'm just saying he has his due in this dream team. And then Willie Hernandez is my setup man as well. Talking about Willie, I think it's amazing. First off, I think it was 84 was a year in the 80s where he was just unhittable.
38 saves, I think.
It was something incredible, but he had the ERA was what I'm really talking about here. But he had the Cy Young that year, and the MVP, and a World Series ring. That's been done by only two other players, so 3 players in baseball history have the Cy Young, the MVP, and a World Series ring all in the same year.
Yeah.
So that is elite class. It's just the same reason you can't leave Miguel Cabrera off this list with the Triple Crown winner. It's just too small of a list to not acknowledge and give respect to.
Not related to Keith Hernandez.
Your manager?
Sparky Anderson.
Yeah, that's an easy choice too. Hall of Famer Sparky Anderson.
Yeah, great. He loved Baltimore, by the way.
He loved beating Baltimore.
Yes, but a great manager. I think during his era, he was the best manager, Reds and Tigers, during that 20-year span. But he did a great job. Winner at both franchises.
Yes, Hall of Fame manager.
Yes,
Very easy choice.
yes,
All right,
yes.
so a lot. I'll show you in a second, Dad. But I believe this takes the cake. It could be Cincinnati, but it's either Cincinnati or Detroit with the most logos in history. I do want to bring attention real quick before I show my dad to 1927. Is this a blind tiger? What's going on? Look at all. I didn't know there's so many different versions of the letter D. I think this is every font in Microsoft Word.
Yeah, I'm thinking you really can't go. I think the consistent one is the Old English D.
Yeah.
So I'll take the latest version of the Old English D, and I think that'd be the best one.
My dad likes the new D. I want that put in the record there. But I'm gonna go with the 1927 one just because I made fun of it, and it doesn't have pupils. Like, who designed that? It clearly was only your logo for 2 years. But I'll take 1927 and 1928, the blind tiger logo. That's what I'm gonna call it.
It's funny how they kind of added the orange along the way, but most of the time it's blue and white.
Yeah.
And just the generic D is.
It's
like,
just
what
literally
is
just
that?
a capital D.
Yeah.
And then 1901 though. That I don't know any red lines. I don't or tigers. Sorry, red tigers. I really don't know any red tigers. But yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
Well,
it's red. It's not orange. But
they might have said, "Hey, we got to do something." Okay, pick something.
I guess
go from there.
maybe that was the only color, like the green monster for Fenway. We only have green paint. Let's make it green. I don't know. It's something.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us and listening to us on that Father and Son Pastime podcast. Again, this is more entertainment than facts sometimes, but I don't know. I think we're a good mix. 3 more to go before we're done our very long 2020 journey of doing in-depth fantasy lineups of all these dream teams.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.